My mom tried to trick me into raising my brother's baby. So, I told everyone what they did. But the big problems were just starting. I am a 31-year-old man. I work as a project manager at my dad's building company in Phoenix. I have been married to Jessica for 5 years. I make $85,000 plus extra money. I have worked in buildings since I was 15. I got each better job by working hard. I own my home with only the house debt left. I bought it for $285,000. I bought it 3 years before I got married. Now it is worth about $380,000. My wife Jessica is 29 years old. She is a nurse who makes about $70,000. I met her at a sports bar near the hospital when she was almost done with nurse school. She looked nice and seemed normal. She had her life in order. I thought I found a good wife. I should have watched more how she talked with the man who serves drinks when we were on our first date. My dad David is 56 years old. He built his building company from nothing. He started hitting nails with a hammer at age 18. He saved all his money. He went to school at night to get his builder's license. He worked hard on house jobs in his 20s and 30s. He slowly got a good name and more customers. By age 40, he got big business jobs. Now he has worked teams doing jobs worth millions of dollars. He is an old-style man who thinks you must work for what you get. He likes hard work and does not like nonsense or excuses. My mom Linda is 54 years old. She stopped working at her desk job at the school office. She uses dad's money to shop all day. She talks about people with her friends from church. She is the kind of person who asks to speak to the boss when she is upset. She thinks everything is about her favorite son. She acts like she is a very good person, but she says bad things about people when they are not there. Then there is my brother Brian. He is 26 years old. Mom loves him best. He is a handsome man with nice hair. He has never worked hard in his life. He thinks he is better than everyone else. He started working in dad's office doing easy paperwork and phone calls for $55,000. But dad has been giving him more work, hoping he will become more grown up. He has a proud face like he is helping people just by coming to work. You need to know how my family works. Dad tried for many years to make Brian act like a man. He made him work summer jobs at building sites when he was 16. Dad hoped hard work would make him a better person. Brian would come to work late. He would say it was too hot. He would find reasons to sit in the truck with the cold air on while everyone else worked very hard. I remember one time when Brian was 19. Dad had him working on a roof in July. It was summer in Phoenix and 115 degrees hot. The boy worked for only 2 hours before he said he felt sick and had to go home. The rest of us worked for 10 hours. Dad felt very bad, especially when the workers made jokes about his weak son. At the same time, I was learning all types of work. I learned about wires, water pipes, building frames, cement, and wall boards. I started at the lowest job, cleaning tools and putting materials in order. I worked my way up to better jobs. Dad taught me that you must earn respect, not just get it. He taught me that nothing is free in this world. By age 20, I was leading my own work teams on house projects. Dad made me a project manager when I was 24 because I got work done and did not cost him money. Dad stopped trying to make Brian do hard work. He put him in the office to do paperwork and talk to customers. In the last year, Dad started giving Brian more work. He gave him jobs like guessing costs for small house projects. He had him talk to people who sell materials. He had him work with some of the easier business customers. But Brian acts like he is a big boss. He wears costly clothes. He drives a BMW that he rents. The car costs more money than most people pay for their homes. The bad feelings were easy to see. At every family dinner, Mom would say good things about Brian for doing small things. She would praise him for coming to work on time for 1 week. At the same time, I had just finished watching over an $800,000 small mall project that cost less money than planned. Dad saw this, but said nothing to stop fights. Brian has always been jealous. When I bought my house, he said mean things about how some people have all the luck. When Dad made me a project manager, Brian said it was just because I was family. He did not care that I had worked very hard for 10 years while he played video games. 2 years ago, Brian got into money trouble. He owed money on his credit cards. He could not pay for his car. This is what happens when you spend more money than you have. Dad helped him with a $15,000 loan. Brian was supposed to pay it back in 2 years. Brian made 3 payments. Then he started making excuses why he could not pay. The first 2 years with Jessica were good. We had our way of doing things. I took care of the house and money. She took care of talking with friends and cooking. We both worked hard. We were building a life together. We planned to have kids. She was a good cook. She made very good Sunday dinners that made me think of my grandmother's cooking. Jessica worked a normal hospital schedule. She worked 3 days each week for 12 hours each day. She usually worked Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. This let us know when we would be together. It made planning easy. We said we would try to have a baby after our 3rd wedding day. This was in October 2022. Jessica stopped taking birth control pills that month. We kept track of everything. We really wanted to start a family. This is what normal married couples do. We even picked names. Isabella for a girl. David Jr. for a boy, named after my dad. Around January 2023, Dad got a big job to fix up a hospital downtown. The job would take 6 months and pay $2 million. It was the biggest job in our company's history. We had to take everything out of a hospital from the 1980s and make it new. Dad put me in charge because I had done a good job running the medical center project in Scottsdale the year before. Hospital work is very different. Everything must be perfect. There are many rules. People who check the work are there every day. I spent all my time at that job. I worked at least 12 hours each day. On weekends, I dealt with changes to the plan and city workers who checked everything. They acted like they were doing very important work. Jessica understood the stress at first. She would bring me food at the worksite sometimes. She knew this job could make us have enough money for our whole lives. If I did a good job, I would become a part owner of the company. I would get a lot more money. We might even be able to start the company in other cities. We talked about using the extra money to pay off our house. Then we would look for other properties to invest in. That is when Jessica started spending time with Amanda. Amanda was a nurse who travels for work and was working at Jessica's hospital for a short time. Jessica said Amanda was not married and liked to try new things. She knew all the fun places in Phoenix that I had never heard of. Suddenly, Jessica was going out 3 nights each week. Before, she would stay home with me and watch Netflix. We had done this for years. I was too busy with cement plans and wire checks to notice the changes. When I think back, that is when everything started to go wrong. But I was so focused on finishing this project that I did not see the warning signs. Jessica's work schedule became very messy around February. She had always worked those 3 12-hour days. We had built our whole marriage around this plan. But suddenly, she was always working extra days. She said she was working for sick coworkers. She said she had to go to training classes that started without any warning. Her normal work days stayed the same, but she was working 5 or 6 days each week instead of 3. At the same time, Brian started coming to our house when I was not there. I would come home very tired at 8 o'clock at night. Jessica would tell me that Brian had come to see how she was doing. He brought her coffee from that costly place downtown. He helped fix something small in our house that I had been planning to fix. At first, I thought this was good. Brian was finally acting like family. He was not acting like a spoiled man who only cared about himself. Maybe having more work was finally making him grow up. At work, Brian was actually doing better for once. He started dressing better for work instead of like he was going to a dance club. He came to work on time. He even said he would work on weekends to count supplies and do paperwork. Dad said many times that Brian was finally growing up. When the hospital job ended in late March 2023, I finished early and spent less money than planned. I thought things would go back to normal with Jessica. The project was a big success. It cost $50,000 less than we planned. The company got extra money because people liked our work. Dad said he would use this money to buy new equipment. But normal had changed while I was working 70 hours each week. Her work schedule was still very messy. She was still working extra days. She still had to go to training classes. She still had to help with work problems that needed her right away. But now I was home more. I could pay more attention. I started to notice things that did not make sense. I first noticed money problems. Jessica had been taking out $200 in cash every Friday for 2 months. When I asked her about it, she said her nights out with friends were costing more money. She said she liked using cash, so she would not spend too much on the card. This seemed to make sense because we had always been careful not to owe money on credit cards. But we had kept track of every dollar we spent for 5 years. This was the first time she took out cash regularly without talking to me about it. Then there was how she used her phone. This started to make me very upset. She would always be sending messages with a secret smile. She was very focused on her phone talks. But as soon as I came into the room, she would turn her phone over or put it away. It looked like she had been caught doing something bad. When I asked who she was talking to, she always said the same thing. She said it was a work group chat about schedules and hospital talk. In early April, she started having body problems. I did not know what it was at the time. Jessica would get sick every morning at the same time. I would hear her in the bathroom at 6 o'clock in the morning. She would be throwing up. Then the shower would run for a very long time. One morning, I got up to see if she was okay. I found her on her knees in front of the toilet. She looked very sick. I said maybe she was going to have a baby. I saw her face turn white. She looked very scared. She said it was just a sickness that was going around the hospital. She said half the nurses had the same problem. She made a doctor appointment, but she told me not to go with her. She said it was not important enough for me to miss work. Here is something important. I had been keeping track of her monthly body cycle on my phone since October. That was when she stopped taking birth control pills. We were trying to have a baby, so I watched everything carefully. I kept track of the best days to make a baby. I kept track of how long her cycle was. She was 3 weeks late for her monthly cycle. This had never happened in all our time together. But when I said something about it, she got angry and defensive in a way that surprised me. She said, "Why are you keeping track of my period like a creepy person who follows people? I can take care of my own body, Mark. Stop trying to control everything in my life." This reaction was too strong for a normal talk between a married couple trying to have a baby. Mom's actions changed at the same time. This should have been another warning sign. For years, she had called our home phone. Now she started calling Jessica's cell phone directly. They would talk for a long time. Jessica would leave the room. She would talk quietly for 30 to 40 minutes. I would see her walking around the backyard, or she would lock herself in our bedroom. She would speak in very quiet whispers. Sometimes I would hear small parts of their talks through the door. I would hear things like, "Check on that situation," or "Make sure everything is handled properly," or "He can't find out about this." When did my wife and mother start having secret talks that I could not hear? For the first 4 years of my marriage, they had barely been nice to each other. One time, I walked into the kitchen while they were talking on the phone with the sound on. Mom said right away, "Oh, Mark is home. We will talk later." Then she hung up. The way she sounded was just like they had been caught planning a surprise party. But my birthday was not for another 6 months. Jessica's stories about work did not make sense when I started to pay attention. She would come home and say she had worked 2 shifts in a row, but she would have lots of energy instead of being tired. Or she would say she had helped in a surgery for a bad injury, but her work clothes would not smell like blood or medicine like they usually did after hard surgeries. The last straw happened on a Tuesday in the middle of April. My truck would not start. I had to get a ride home with Rodriguez, one of my work bosses. I left work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon instead of my usual 7 o'clock at night. I walked through the front door and heard people talking in the living room. Jessica was laughing in a way I had not heard in months. She sounded very happy and relaxed. Brian was sitting on my couch next to my wife. He was closer than a wife's brother should be. They were not touching, but they were in that close space that couples use when they feel comfortable with each other. When I appeared in the doorway, they both moved apart quickly. It looked like they had been caught doing something wrong. Jessica actually asked, "What are you doing here?" Brian spilled his coffee when he jumped up. He made a bad excuse about being in the area and wanting to see if Jessica was okay. He said I had been working a lot lately. He thought she might need someone to talk to. The whole talk felt wrong. They were too nervous for what should have been a normal family visit. Brian's smile looked fake. Jessica kept playing with her hair. She would not look at me. Jessica said, "Brian brought me coffee from that place downtown. Wasn't that nice?" That night, I could not sleep. Every part of me felt that something was very wrong. The changed schedules, secret phone calls, signs of being pregnant, Brian's sudden interest in being a caring brother-in-law. There were too many strange things to ignore. I started thinking about what had happened in the last few months. I realized many things did not make sense. I decided to look for answers. The next day, I started with company records. Brian could use work trucks and go to work sites because of his job. I checked the GPS records on his work truck for the last 3 months. I looked at where he went and when. I found many times he went to places that had nothing to do with work. He went to my neighborhood during work hours when I should have been the only one home. He went to a hotel in Scottsdale. He went to restaurants in parts of town where we had no work projects. I compared those dates with Jessica's work schedule using the calendar app we both used. The pattern became clear very fast. Every time Brian's truck was in my area or at one of these strange places, Jessica said she was working an extra day or dealing with a work problem. The match was too perfect to be an accident. Next, I looked more carefully at our shared bank account. I looked back 4 months instead of just recent spending. The cash withdrawals were not random. They happened every Friday right on time. It was always exactly $200. But I also found charges at restaurants and hotels in Scottsdale on days when Jessica said she was working 2 shifts at the hospital. She spent $180 at Fleming Steakhouse on a Wednesday when she said she was working a 12-hour shift. She spent $220 at the Four Seasons for afternoon tea on a Thursday when she said she was in a training class she had to go to. She spent $90 at a small hotel restaurant for brunch on a Sunday when she said she was working for a sick coworker. I started keeping a detailed list. I wrote down every difference between her work schedule and our money records. The pattern was very clear when I looked at everything together. I called the hospital. I pretended I was trying to reach Jessica because of a family emergency. The nurse at the front desk said Jessica was not supposed to work that day. She said Jessica had not been at work for 3 days. This was a Wednesday when Jessica had said she worked a 12-hour shift the night before. She also said she was going to work another 12-hour shift that night. That is when I knew I had to check her email. This meant breaking the privacy rules we had always followed. On Thursday afternoon, Jessica was at what she said was a required safety class about new equipment. I stayed home. I pretended I had a stomach sickness. I sat at our home computer. My heart was beating fast. My hands were shaking. I opened her email account. I used the password we had always shared. T. Medina 2019. This was from our last anniversary trip. At the top of her inbox was a group of emails between Jessica and my mother. The subject line said, "Making sure Mark doesn't find out." My hands started shaking when I saw those words. It made me feel sick in my body. What were they hiding from me? I clicked on the emails. I found 3 months of detailed emails talking about Jessica's affair with Brian. The first messages from February were careful. Mom asked if Jessica was sure about what she was doing. Mom warned her to be careful. Mom said maybe it was just something that would end soon. But the emails got braver and more detailed quickly. My own mother was giving step-by-step instructions on how to lie to me. She told Jessica exactly when to pretend to work extra days. She told her what excuses would sound most true. She offered her house as a place to meet when Dad was playing golf or working late at the office. One email from March made me feel sick. It said, "David always plays golf on Thursday afternoons until 6 o'clock. So, you have at least 4 hours if you park in the back driveway. Brian can use the side door by the garage. I will make sure the neighbors do not see anything strange." Another email said, "Tell Mark you are working 2 shifts on Tuesday night. David has that builder meeting until 10 p.m. So, the house will be empty. Brian already told his roommate he is staying overnight at a work site." Then came the emails about being pregnant from the middle of April. Jessica was 8 weeks pregnant. Her doctor, Dr. Martinez, had confirmed it. They were not sure if the baby was mine or Brian's. The timing of when it happened could have been with either of us. My mother's response was the most disgusting part. She told Jessica to say the baby was mine no matter what. She said I would be a better father than Brian anyway. She said that what I did not know would not hurt me. Another email from Mom said, "Brian is not ready for the responsibility anyway. Mark has the house, the good job, and he is grown up. Just let him think the baby is his, and everyone wins. Brian gets to keep having fun. You get money security. Mark gets the family he has always wanted." Jessica's response was, "But what if Mark finds out later? What if the baby looks like Brian?" Mom's reply was, "We will deal with that if it happens. For now, just focus on making Mark think everything is normal. Keep having sex with him regularly so the timing of the pregnancy makes sense." I sat there for 2 hours reading every email. I felt sicker with each message. I took pictures of everything on my phone. I saved copies to a small computer drive. I printed the most hurtful emails. My hands were shaking, but my mind felt clear and focused. These people had been planning to ruin my life for months. They thought they were smart enough to not get caught. I called Dad right away. I said, "Dad, I need to see you at the office right now. There is a family emergency. I can't talk about it on the phone." 20 minutes later, I was in his office. I showed him everything. I told him the whole story. Jessica, Brian, the baby, and Mom's part in planning it and keeping it secret. He was quiet for a long time while he thought about what I was telling him. When he finally spoke, his voice was very calm. This actually scared me. He said, "Son, this is war now. Meet me at Robert's office in 2 hours." Don't say anything to anyone until we figure out what to do legally. Dad and I sat in Robert's law office. We looked at all my proof like we were getting ready for a court case. Robert does all the legal work for our company. He is also known for being very tough in divorce court. Dad had called Robert before we came. He had explained the situation. So Robert had made sure he had no other work that afternoon. Robert looked at everything carefully. He looked at the emails, bank records, GPS records, restaurant bills, and hospital schedule problems. His opinion was immediate and harsh. He said, "The house is yours. You bought it before you got married. With this much proof, we can act fast and protect everything you have worked for." His instructions were clear and immediate. He said to secure all money today. He said to protect my things. He said to write down everything. He said not to talk to anyone until we had all the legal steps ready. First, I went to the bank. I moved $95,000 from our shared account to my personal account. I left exactly $5,000 in the shared account. I did this so it would not look like I was trying to hide money. I also made sure that the money I had before getting married was safe. I had about $140,000 in retirement accounts and stocks. I made sure these were written down as my property only. Jessica would have no right to this money. Dad also made some important calls while I was at the bank. He took away Brian's access to company money and vehicles right away. He told Linda, the office manager, that Brian was being moved to a different job. He said Brian would not need his company credit card, truck, or key to the building anymore. Brian would find out on Monday morning. His key would not work to get into the building. His truck would not start. I stopped all our shared credit cards except one. I left one card with a $2,000 limit. I did this so Jessica could not spend a lot of money to get back at me. I took Jessica off my personal credit cards so she could not use them. Every move I made was planned to protect my money and things. I made sure everything I did was legal. That evening, Jessica's phone made a sound. She had a text message from Brian. She was in the shower. I had been waiting for a chance like this. The message said, "I can't wait for tomorrow at Mom's house. Dad is working late, so we will have the place to ourselves again. Bring that thing you bought yesterday." This was new proof that the affair was still happening and getting worse. I took a picture of the message and sent it to Robert right away. That is when I decided it was time to stop this fake act completely. I called Dad. I asked him to plan a family dinner at my house for Saturday night. He understood right away what I was planning. I did not have to explain it to him. She wanted to know what this mysterious announcement was about. Dad just nodded at me with a look that showed he knew what was happening. Brian arrived 20 minutes late. He had his usual proud look on his face. He wore a designer shirt that probably cost more than most people make in one day. He gave me one of those brotherly pats on the shoulder that made me feel like he thought he was better than me. I wanted to hit him right then. He said, "So what's the big news, bro? Is Jessica finally pregnant? It's about time you two got your life together." The way he said it with that knowing smile, and the way he said, "finally," told me everything I needed to know. He thought he was winning some kind of game. He thought he had been smarter than his older brother and had gotten away with it. Jessica barely talked during dinner. She just moved her food around her plate. She kept looking nervously between Brian and me. Mom kept trying to make small talk about the weather and her friends from church. But you could feel the tension in the room. After dinner, Dad raised his beer with a warm smile. He said, "Well, son, what's this big announcement you wanted to share with the family?" I reached for the yellow envelope. I pushed it across the table to Jessica. I said, "Actually, I do have something very important to share with everyone. These are divorce papers." It was completely silent. You could hear the air conditioner running. You could hear a neighbor's dog barking far away. Jessica's face turned white like a ghost. Her hands started shaking. She said, "What? What are you talking about, Mark?" Mom started her usual dramatic act. She put her hand over her heart, like she was having heart problems. She said, "Mark, what's gotten into you?" I said, "Save it, Mom." I cut her off and gave the second envelope to Dad. I said, 3 months of emails between Mom and Jessica planning Jessica's affair with Brian. Mom has been helping to hide the whole thing. Dad opened the envelope and started reading. Even though he already knew what was in them, He got angrier with each page. Brian stood up so fast that his chair fell back and hit the wall behind him. He said, "You read her emails? That's illegal, you crazy person. You can't use that in court." I said, "Really? That's what you're most worried about right now?" My voice was very calm. I said, "Not that you've been sleeping with my wife for 3 months." Jessica put her hands over her mouth. She said, "Mark, please just listen to me." I said, "Be quiet, Jessica." I did not even look at her. Dad read the part where Mom suggested using his golf schedule to plan their secret meetings. Mom reached across the table for the papers, but Dad pulled them away from her. Dad said, "Linda, what the hell is this?" Mom said, "David, let me explain." Dad said, "Explain what?" Dad's voice was so loud it filled the whole house. I thought the windows might shake. He said, "How you helped destroy our family. How you turned my own son against his brother. How you have been lying to my face for months." Mom's calm act broke completely. She started pointing at Jessica. She said, "She came to me. She seduced Brian. I was just trying to limit the damage to the family." Brian actually had the nerve to smile and shrug. He said, "Come on. Everyone needs to calm down. Mark, you work 70 hours a week. Jessica needed attention and love. I was there for her when you weren't." That is when I completely lost control. I walked around the table and hit him in the face as hard as I could. I felt his nose break under my hand. Blood splattered all over his designer shirt. He fell down hard. He knocked over the china cabinet when he fell. Mom screamed like someone was killing her favorite son. Dad stood up slowly. He is 6 feet, 3 inches tall and 220 pounds. He stood over everyone in the room. He said, "Get him outside now." Brian was on the floor. Blood was running down his face onto my wood floor. Brian said, "Dad, you can't just." Dad said, "I can do whatever I want. You're fired. You're getting no more money from me. As far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me." Mom was breathing very fast. She said, "David, he's your son." Dad said, "Mark is my son." Brian proved tonight that being family doesn't matter when you betray family. Jessica was crying very hard. She said, "Mark, the baby might be yours." I said, "Then we'll get a test to see who the father is. Either way, we're done. You're done. This marriage is over." I gave Dad the check. I said, "Your money back from Brian's last loan. He won't be paying you back now." Dad looked at the check. Then he looked at Brian bleeding on my floor. Then he looked at Mom, who was still trying to help Brian sit up. His eyes were as cold as winter. He said, "Linda, get your coat. We're leaving right now. You and I have some very serious things to discuss at home." After they left, Jessica and I sat in silence. We were surrounded by the mess. There was a broken chair, blood drops on my wood floor, divorce papers all over the table, and broken dishes everywhere. She finally asked in a whisper, "What happens now?" I said, "Now you pack whatever you can and get out of my house. This place is mine. You have until tomorrow morning to find where you will go, but you won't stay here." She nodded and went upstairs to pack. I sat alone at the dining table. I felt strangely peaceful for the first time in months. The divorce happened quickly with all my proof. Jessica tried to ask for money from me, but Robert stopped that right away. With the proof of her cheating and her nurse's salary, the judge said no. In Arizona, you can get a divorce without proving someone did something wrong. But cheating still matters when dividing money and things. She got her personal things and her Honda Civic car. She got nothing else. The fatherhood test confirmed what I already knew. The baby was not mine. Jessica moved in with Amanda. Amanda was the traveling nurse who had helped with the whole affair by covering for Jessica's fake work shifts. I heard from friends we both knew that Amanda got tired of supporting Jessica and her pregnancy problems after about 6 weeks. It seemed that Jessica was impossible to live with. She cried all the time. She wanted attention all the time. She expected Amanda to pay for everything. Dad did everything he said he would do. Brian was fired from the company for good. He was not allowed at any work sites. Dad also called other builders in the Phoenix area. News travels fast in the building business. Brian could not get a job in the only type of work he had ever done. Even better, Dad stopped giving Brian money in every way possible. No more payments for his BMW car. No more credit cards. No more cash when he got into trouble. For the first time in his life where he felt entitled, Brian had to face real results. There was no safety net to catch him. 3 weeks after the big fight, Brian got arrested for driving with a suspended license and an expired car registration. It turned out he had been driving without car insurance for months because he could not pay for it. A few months ago, Mom and Brian came to my house without telling me. They made the most shocking request I have ever heard in my life. They wanted me to take responsibility for Jessica's daughter. They wanted me to give the baby my last name. They wanted me to pay child support. They wanted me to help with expenses. They also wanted me to pay Brian's legal fees so he could start over. Their thinking was that family is family. Past mistakes should be forgiven for the child's sake. And I was the only one with a good job who could handle the responsibility. The nerve it took to make that request still surprises me. Mom said, "Mark, be the better person here. That little girl needs a father figure, and you're the only one who can give her stability." I told them both to get off my property and never come back. I said I would not pay any money for their mistakes. I would not take any responsibility for what happened because of their choices. They destroyed our family with their lies and betrayal. I was not going to let them destroy my future too. I called the police. I had them told they were not allowed on my property. The police officer who came said he had seen this kind of family fight before. He told me I was smart to write down everything and stop talking to them completely. It has been 8 months since that dinner changed everything. I will not lie, the first few months were very hard. It felt like starting over at age 30. I questioned everything I had believed about family, loyalty, and trust. But removing the bad people from my life made room for good things to grow. Dad and I are closer than we have ever been. He made me a full partner in the business. I own 40% of the company now. We are looking at growing the business. We want to do building development in Tucson and maybe even Las Vegas. The company is making more money than ever without Brian weighing us down and causing problems with customers. I started dating again about 6 months after the divorce was finished. I met Rachel at a work conference in Las Vegas. She is an architect who specializes in medical buildings and business developments. She is smart and has big goals. She has her own money and her own career plans. She does not need someone to take care of her. She is the complete opposite of Jessica in every way that matters. I still hear about Brian and Jessica from people we both know in the building and medical fields. Brian has apparently had 4 different jobs in 8 months. He cannot keep a job because he still thinks he is too good for hard work. He still thinks he deserves respect he has not earned. Jessica posted on social media asking for money to help with baby costs. People who knew the whole story wrote mean comments about her. Mom tried to contact me through Dad a few times. She wanted to fix things for the family's sake. She asked when this punishment would end. Dad tells her no every time. He tells her she made her choice when she helped destroy her son's marriage. Now she has to live with the results of her choice, just like everyone else. The lesson here is not hard to understand, but it took me 30 years and a broken marriage to learn it. When people show you who they really are, believe them the first time. Family is not about blood. It is about being loyal, showing respect, and helping each other when things are hard. Brian and Mom failed that test very badly. Dad and I passed it. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well. The people who hurt you have to face the natural results of their choices. Brian, Jessica, and Mom are all paying for what they did every single day. That is enough justice for me.